Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Undead Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing The Walking Dead Season 3, episodes 13, 14, and 15. And of course, my dad is here to join me.
Well, hello, everyone.
So, overall, what, that was creepy.
It was creepy.
So, overall, like, before we dissect each episode, did you like these 3 episodes?
Yeah, I thought they were really good episodes, but comparison to the rest of the season, probably not my favorite. Definitely setting up the finale, but and again, there were some developments in the last episode here we'll talk about, but not my favorite overall. I thought the earlier part of the season was stronger. How about you?
I think so. I agree. I feel like these episodes, they weren't bad episodes. There were some good moments in them, but overall it just some parts of it I just feel like were kind of weak. But we'll kind of get into that as we get through it. But let's talk season 3, episode 13, called Arrow on the Doorpost. In an effort to prevent any more deaths, Rick and the governor decide to sit down and discuss the possibility of a peace treaty. So I don't know about you. Well, we kind of discussed this. I thought the scenes between Rick and the governor were super boring.
Yeah, long, some dialogue, kind of a peeing contest. Um, not necessarily all that interesting, but I did like the conversations that were taking place outside, and I know you'll talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So we pretty much have Rick, Daryl, and Herschel, um, and they go and they are meeting with the governor and his group of people, including Andrea, and basically they're just trying to discuss like a trade of some sorts, like what can we do to make this all go away. And then there's like these really long conversations between Rick and the governor that I don't really care about, but there is something that happens at the end that does kind of explain why they were sitting down to discuss in the first place. But no, we have these talks between Herschel and Milton that I kind of liked. Milton said, "Can I see your wound?" And Herschel was like, "You have to buy me a drink first."
Yeah, that was good. That was good. But they were realizing they had a lot in common. They're
Mm-hmm.
pretty smart dudes, and more intellectual, maybe
Yeah,
book smart, and they had a lot in common. They could
yeah,
be good friends, and they were realizing it as they were dialoguing.
and like a fascination with
Yep,
science too.
absolutely.
And we also have Daryl and Martinez, and
Hmm.
they're kind of connecting. Martinez is talking about family that he lost, and you know, it not like we care about this character that much, but it does make us kind of like sympathize with him, and it makes more like it makes Daryl sympathize with him, and it further like makes us understand like why maybe people are working for the governor. Like when you lose everyone, like who you turn to, if that makes sense. Like you might make questionable decisions or choices, and I think that was like a good example of this with Daryl and this Martinez guy.
I think the most recent episode, 15, which we'll talk about in a bit, there's decisions being made, and Herschel and Daryl were involved in those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And they are making more humanized decisions than Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of it has to do with this conversation that was taking place outside the parlay because they're realizing that the other people weren't evil. They were just broken people,
Mm-hmm.
just like them. And I think
Yeah.
that's super important for Rick is that he has this wise counsel to help him make
Mm-hmm.
decisions. Anyway, I really liked that scene. Those scenes, I thought they were great.
Yeah, it's interesting, like kind of like develop the development. It started off with Shane as Rick's right hand man, and then it kind of went became Glenn in a way, and then it now it's kind of Daryl and Herschel. It seems like Glenn's not really in that role at this point. It definitely seems more Daryl and Herschel are in that role.
Glenn's a kid, I think, in Rick's eyes.
Hmm.
Glenn wants to be decision maker. We're seeing that this season. He's,
Hmm.
we're not doing it, and that's my final say, and things like that.
Yeah.
He wants to be in that role, but he's still immature, and I think we've seen his immaturity this season.
Hmm.
I think Maggie's seen the immaturity this season,
Hmm.
and everybody. I think everybody in the prison, everyone in the group wants Glenn to grow up, but
Yeah.
showing him some grace. I mean, the guy's been through it, right?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
he's trying. I do
Yeah.
give him that.
Yeah. And we also have Andrea, and she is very conflicted, especially now seeing that her former friends or whatever are literally like right there, and that makes like this decision whether to stay, like who to go with, it makes it even harder for her. And Herschel does say like you're welcome to rejoin the group, but it has to be permanent. Like she can't go back and forth anymore. And now she has that weighing on her as well because this is the first time that she was actually offered to rejoin the group. You know, the last time she was there, people didn't want anything to do with her. But this kind of makes her seem like, oh, maybe they do want me. You know?
Well, I think she has a decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
And that decision has some good on both sides.
Yeah.
Her family is at the prison. The
Mm-hmm.
people who really are there for
Mm-hmm.
her. But at Woodbury, there are people who want her leadership. If you really take a look at her arc as a character, is about her developing and desiring respect. She wants
Mm-hmm.
to be respected. She wants to be listened to, and she's not going to get that at the prison
No.
because Rick is the decision maker, and I'm not really sure that even Herschel and Daryl would listen to her. Maybe,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not. But the people at Woodbury do, and they want to hear what she has to say.
Yeah.
Uh, the governor is this strange, strange attachment that she has to him, and you know, she's had the opportunity to kill him. She didn't do it, and so there's this whole
Yeah.
thing. And anyway,
Although coming up, there's some very interesting stuff with, I think, some ulterior motives from her, kind of going into the next episode. But we'll talk about that in a second. But we also have some drama back at the prison, and I like this. We have Merle and Glenn, and they face off. Like this is kind of a long time coming. We get a fight between them, and then we have Beth firing a gun, and that was unexpected. Um, she's a character that I feel like has barely had anything to do this season, and I was kind of expecting her to have more of a role. But yeah, what did you think of Beth firing that gun?
well, again, she's another character that's being forced to grow up. She's acting more of an adult. I mean, she's basically mothering the baby,
True.
um, which is unusual to be put into that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she will be listened to in the future. Shooting the
Mm-hmm.
gun was just um, her stepping into that role of an
Yeah.
adult.
Mm-hmm. And the Merle and Glenn fight again, I think that was a long time coming. There's been issues with them since day one, pretty much. Um, I'm not saying like the fight was necessarily the right thing to do, but you know, it makes sense why they had to do it, you know, why they had to fight.
Exactly.
There was just so much built up anger in there, especially from Glenn's side, that there just had to be some sort of battle there. But I kind of did like what happened after we do have Glenn and Maggie and they get back together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I appreciate that they're not dragging out this conflict any longer, and we're going to see them together again. And then in episode 15, there's a big milestone for them.
Right.
But then there's a hookup, which is pretty explicit. I think I was telling you this was probably, I think the show's first hookup, and like it was raunchy to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely kind of over the top.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first one that we've seen, I don't remember
Yeah,
the future, so I can't speak to it, but yeah, it definitely was over the top.
yeah. So back with the governor, he wants Rick to hand over Michonne, and he says like all this will be resolved if he gets Michonne.
Right.
So this sets up this conflict that continues through these episodes. And then we have everyone splitting off. Andrea does go back with the governor, but then the ending, she's like, kind of is a bit like oh, what's the word? She's has like a smirk on her face, and she's like, I hope everything works out, and then she walks off, and that made me think like, oh, she's planning something, and that's
Right.
why she went back with him. So at least like she had something in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and that in next episode, and we'll talk about that. It seemed like she was actually going to do it.
Ah, for sure.
But yeah, this episode I thought it was good. I liked pretty much everything except the long Rick and the governor scenes.
Yeah.
What were some spiritual themes from the episode you wanna?
Well, I think dealing with conflict is always an important issue for all of us. Here you have two people sitting down to kind of sort through, and that's a good thing, right? The terms, of course, are not right, and
Yeah.
and so Rick is confronted with big decisions, and he needs
Mm-hmm.
wise counsel, which is super important, and we'll get into that in the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's also the theme of trust and who can be trusted. There's the theme of humanity we talked about earlier with Daryl and Martinez and Milton and Herschel talking, and those are important themes. But I'd say it's interesting when you take a look at the title of this episode, "Arrow in the Doorpost" or "On the Doorpost." Anytime historically, anytime a weapon is stuck into a ground or on a door, it's a sign of truce. And so here again, we have this opportunity for peace, and it's very fragile. Like it could break, um,
Mm-hmm.
and we know it. And we know that Governor Rick sitting down at a table probably is not going to end up well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's neat to see. Like this is a good sign that maybe things could sort themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's probably a really good thing for all of us to remember is that there is another way besides war. We can
Yeah.
sit down at the table and work out our differences.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's not the most exciting to
Exactly.
watch.
Not the most entertaining. It's the
Yeah.
right way of going about it.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
But that's those are some things to think about.
Yeah. So I would give this one. I mean, I thought it was pretty strong. I'll give it like an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd say 8. I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think the Herschel, Milton,
Yeah.
Daryl, Martinez were my favorite parts.
Yeah,
So.
definitely the highlights, like humanizing them a bit. And I would say Milton has never been completely evil.
No.
So for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely conflicted.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk season 3, episode 14, Prey. The governor chases a dissenter who fled Woodbury. While the governor is gone, a traitor tries to sabotage his upcoming plans. This was a good episode. It might have been my favorite of the 3, actually.
Okay.
I thought there were some great moments, some great like action sequences that I really enjoyed. But basically, it starts off with the governor, and he's setting up biter pits, and he's planning to throw the prison people in them. And he's also setting up a torture chair for Michonne. So he's thinking that like he's going to get his way in all of this. He's thinking it's all going to turn out in his favor. He's going to kill the prison people, and he's going to torture Michonne. This is his plan. And then we have Andrea, and she points the gun at the governor, and she's actually very close to shooting him, but Milton stops her. So at this point, I do kind of have some respect for her because at least she like is taking initiative,
Right.
and at least she's trying, which is farther than she got when she was in the bedroom that one time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what do you think of all this? Like,
Well, the governor's an evil dude. I mean, he definitely wants to wipe out everyone at the prison. And Milton realizes it. And this is probably one of the key insights that even if the governor gets Michonne, he's still killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there isn't really a peace settlement here between these two entities. He's killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And Milton realizes it. Milton, while he has a friendship with the governor, he's beginning to see that everybody is important and valuable and nobody should be killed.
Yeah, for sure. And Andrea, she escapes. This is the second time she escapes, and I think this time it was more permanent. She's done.
She's out. Yep.
She tried to kill the governor. She was stopped by Milton. Her and Milton had like I guess a sweet goodbye. I thought it was kind of weird when she kissed his cheek, but whatever. And she's out. And Tyrese and Sasha were there when she left, and they kind of report this to the governor, and the governor then immediately starts to go and chase after Andrea. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about Tyrese and his gang. This is very interesting. We have Alan, and Alan is in the comics. Very different though from the comics to the show, but he is the father of Ben, and there's a lot of tension between Tyrese and Alan,
right?
All the way through this, to the point where Tyrese literally holds Alan over the biter pit and is about to throw him in,
right?
But then he holds back. So what did you think of this Tyrese and Alan tension?
Well, I think Tyrese has a good heart. Like he has good morals. He doesn't think that people should be killed. But you don't want to push him too far, right? And that's where Alan kind of did. And Alan is threatening Tyrese and
Mm-hmm.
Tasha. So we
Sasha.
Sasha, sorry. So we see Tyrese defending, and but Tyrese is seeing through the governor's plans to see that they're sinister,
Mm-hmm.
um, to see through that the governor, even if Michonne is handed over, the governor isn't going to stop there, and
Yeah.
Tyrese knows that that's just not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think that's an
Yeah.
interesting conflict, but we're beginning to see that Tyrese is just a really good guy.
Yeah, and he's questioning the governor's morals. I'm really curious as to where he's going to stand in this battle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, is he going to join Rick's group? I feel like he has to. Or I don't know. I'm curious. He doesn't show up in 15, but I could definitely see him being in the finale
I think
in some
so.
way.
I
Yeah,
would like to say that Tyrese and Milton are in similar situations,
I could see that. Yeah.
and they have similar morals.
Mm-hmm.
They do not think that humanity should be killed,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so that really, and from the governor's standpoint, there's going to be a lot of followers, people who just follow because they think they're believing his propaganda that the prisoners have attacked them and done all these horrible things. But there's a lot of people that don't believe in war, that don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in killing. And
Yeah.
so this is interesting tension for the governor. Does he really have enough loyalists to accomplish his mission?
Mm-hmm.
And so the getting the biters and the biter pits are a way to increase his army by having biters, where
Mm-hmm.
they've hauled them in trucks and dropped them off at different places, and that creates, more manpower. And I think he realizes in order to kill Rick and the gang, he's going to need more manpower, and
Yeah.
that's the reason he's capturing zombies in these pits.
Yeah, for sure.
But but somebody sets him on fire.
Yeah. And but before we talk about that, I did let's talk the governor and Andrea because we do have her and she's on the run. But unfortunately, when you have truck versus foot and the truck's gonna win or the truck's gonna catch up and get very close.
Mm-hmm.
So he is able to catch her. There is a bit of a struggle, and I actually really like those scenes. I thought they were really well done. Him trying to get to her. Did you enjoy those?
Yeah, it's almost like a horror movie kind
Yeah.
of scenes.
Hmm. And it was she got so close to the prison. I was not expecting her to get all the way to actually the prison, and she
Yeah.
waves at Rick, and then
Yep.
the governor catches her, and
Yeah, that was a nice suspenseful moment
yeah,
there.
and then Rick like he saw something,
Mm-hmm.
but because of all his hallucinations, he just thinks it was
Rick
nothing.
is always singing something.
Hmm. But that was a bummer. I felt bad for her. And honestly, I would say this is probably the most likable Andrea has been like all season. Like even if you don't like her, you gotta appreciate what she was trying to do. And that she tried to put a stop to the governor and then she was like, okay, I'm out. And then, the ending we have her tied up and I did feel bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Yes.
Like she was just, and through all this, she was trying to make things right, and she just wanted to get to the prison to be with her friends again, and she just couldn't get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And now she's tied up, and she's pretty much in Michonne's place.
Yep.
So, and this is all we have with Andrea, and I'm sure in the finale they'll have something. But what do you think? Do you think she's going to make it out of this chair, or do you think this is going to be the end of her?
Hmm. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. Like, I really don't know. It'll be interesting to see where the finale takes us.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we have Milton, and he sets the biter pits on fire, and the governor easily is able to find it, like realize that it's him.
But he
Mm-hmm.
accuses, everyone thinks it's Tyrese.
Mm-hmm. And but no, it was Milton, and this is very interesting. And I'm curious as the governor is going to try to get his revenge on Milton too. It's very possible.
Well, it's yeah, and with that, where does Milton's loyalties really lie?
Mm-hmm.
When push comes to shove, will he go for his, you know, for his friend, right? Philip, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, Philip. Yeah.
Or will he, side on the side of peace and nonviolence? It'll be interesting.
I would love if he was able to save Andrea,
Yeah, that would be
Milton,
cool.
or Tyrese, or someone. I really hope Andrea will come out of this because this would be a sad end to her character.
I agree. I've really liked her character in this season. As you
Yeah.
all know, if you've been following along, she was my least favorite character in seasons um, 1 and 2,
Hmm.
and so I think the
I
actress has
yeah.
really done a great job this season.
I hope she makes it out
Yep.
for sure. Um, so that's basically the episode. What were some spiritual stuff?
Freedom is a huge spiritual theme, and we see the desire for Andrea to have freedom. And there's always, somebody at your heels, and it's difficult to get freedom
Hmm.
in life. And I did not like that scene where she was captured that close to freedom.
Yeah, that was really
That was
sad.
hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the way it is in our lives too. We
Hmm.
get really close and something trips us up.
Hmm.
But we need to continue to fight and survive and
Yeah.
long for freedom. Um, we've talked about moral choices, decisions, and loyalty, which are themes and virtues woven into this. The title of the episode is called Prey, Prey, not Pray,
Hmm.
and it refers to Andrea being hunted by the governor. She's the
Yeah.
prey
I picked that up.
in
Yeah.
this episode. But in
Hmm.
reality, the zombies are preying on all humans, and
Yeah.
so we have that over threat, that over big threat. But in the
Hmm.
specifics here, we have the governor who is zombie-like, preying on
Hmm.
humanity, and
Yeah.
again, the themes woven into this entire show is about what does it mean to be human and what does it mean to be a monster. The
Hmm.
governor is a monster. He is no longer acting as a human being, and
Hmm.
that's sad to watch. Really is. It's sad to see. And we'll see in this next episode, Rick's in the similar situation. Which will he do? Will he be a monster, or will he work to defend humanity?
Hmm. So I really like this episode. I'm gonna give it a nine.
Oh, cool.
9 out of 10. What about you?
I would go with an 8. Again, I really liked it. Again, I'm longing for something, some resolution to some of these arcs and
Yeah,
stories.
for sure. Okay, season 3, episode 15 is called This Sorrowful Life. Rick and the group are faced with a serious problem. If they want a truce with the governor, they will have to make a huge sacrifice. So it starts off with Rick, and he tells Daryl and Herschel about the deal, or not the deal, but what the governor wants, and he wants Michonne. And Rick is like for it. He's like, if this is the only thing to like settle this, then he's willing to give her up. And Daryl's like, this isn't us, and Herschel's like, no, it is not. And yeah, what do you think of Rick being for this?
Well, yeah, I mean he's becoming a monster. He is becoming the governor,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's sad to see it. When you're watching, at least for me, I was watching. I was like, no, but I rejoiced when I heard Herschel and Daryl, especially Daryl, with everything Daryl's been through. He could easily be like his brother, right? And
Mm-hmm.
no, he's becoming something different. And again, does it go back to those conversations with Martinez and Milton back at the truce or the peace plan, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
Or does it really just go through the entire character arc of, especially when Carol says, "You're not that person anymore. You're new."
Yeah.
Daryl is becoming someone new, and that's what we long for in all of life. We want to see people be redeemed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it.
Um, and we have some. This is like Merle's episode. I thought
Mm-hmm.
a Merle centric episode, which honestly, at this point in the show, what I've noticed is that they give like if a character is gonna die, they focus on them a lot in that episode, which isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. But now I'm kind of always predicting that that character is gonna die.
Right.
I would and so um, but no, Merle he doesn't think that Rick like has the spine to hand Michonne over. And he pretty much tells him that. And he also thinks Rick's a hypocrite because everyone was mad at him mad at Merle when he handed Glenn and Maggie over to the governor.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this thing with like everyone wants to like take Rick's side on it, or they don't, but like because Rick's the leader, like they're supposed to. And then we have Merle, who's this outsider that nobody can trust, and Merle thinks that like there's just some hypocrisy, which I think there is. But what do you think of this with Merle?
Yeah, I think Merle is speaking truth here.
Mm-hmm.
Merle sees through Rick. Rick is being a hypocrite. Rick is doing exactly what Merle did.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Merle's finding his identity in this part of the episode. He's
Mm-hmm.
realizing that his job is to do the job nobody else has the spine to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he realizes that he needs to act on what Rick intended that Rick won't do. And so he takes matters into his own hands. But I think that it's part of his identity. He thinks he's doing, everyone's going to like him and approve of him and accept him if he does the job that nobody else will do.
Yeah.
That's what he did for the governor. That's what he's doing for Rick. I honestly don't think that Merle wants this done.
With Michonne?
Yeah,
I don't think so
I
either.
think Merle's against it.
Mm-hmm.
Merle is changing, but again, this is his role, so he's going to do it.
Yeah. And he feels like everyone else is weak, I think, too.
Yep.
Even his brother.
Yep.
Because like he thinks his brother has gotten soft by siding with Rick. And
Agreed.
he believes he's the only tough one of the group and the only one capable of doing this, so he's just gonna go do it.
Even if he really doesn't think it's the right
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because didn't he say, and again, I can't remember, didn't he say that the governor's not going to be satisfied with this? No, what did he say? He started to say
Something like
what the governor's going to do to Michonne.
that. Mm-hmm.
And he started listing things.
Yeah.
And, and I know he's against those things.
Mm-hmm.
But he had to speak truth to Rick to get Rick to reconsider.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
And we have Rick, and he still is having these visions of Lori, which I mean, I kind of get. I mean, it's supposed to make him like reflect on his decision to do it or not. But I'm kind of tired of the visions of Lori at this point. They feel a bit like
Agreed.
exhausting,
Agreed.
and it's almost like they had to have like the actors in a certain number of episodes or something like as a contract, so they kept her around just for these visions. But like, I'm almost kind of wondering, like, since I mean, they're trying to make it seem like Lori was the one who grounded Rick, but they spent most of their time arguing, which is kind of confusing to me. Like, why would she be the one to make him like?
Something was missing there. I didn't get it. I didn't get
Mm-hmm.
her being the catalyst
Mm-hmm.
to his changing his mind. I don't know if it was like there's a deleted scene that we'll have to
Or
watch.
just maybe a bit of poor writing.
Yeah, yeah, or there was something deeper that I missed. I don't know.
Like, what made their relationship so significant that she would be able to convince him to not do this? I never thought their relationship was that deep. That's just me, though.
Yeah, and where was Carl in all this?
That's true. Like, they
And
should have had something with Carl.
because I think Carl would have been the bigger catalyst to
Yeah.
change, unless it was the realization that the vision itself, it wasn't necessarily Lori. The vision
Mm-hmm.
itself is what got him to wake up.
Maybe. Um, and we have Merle, and he knocks out Michonne, and pretty much he's taking her to the governor himself because he believes no one else will do it.
Right.
Again, not that because he might not think that it's right, but he's just going to do it anyways to try to prove himself to a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Try to like show that he has the spine to do it, unlike anyone else. But he does let Michonne go, and Michonne, tries to like convince Merle like this isn't right. Like, let it go. Come back to the prison. Like, you have a brother, and Merle's like, I just can't go back. Like, he has to do this. And honestly, I felt like the whole time Merle was at the prison, I'm like, this isn't him. Like, he's supposed to go out and do other stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt like because he's such a wild card that like him being at the prison, it just wasn't a good fit,
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that they got him out of that prison. And yeah, basically Michonne leaves, and Merle now has this plan. He's going to draw walkers into a building to try to take down the governor, and he tries. You got to give him that, but the governor does shoot him, and that was, it was definitely a bit of a shocker. I didn't really know what to expect. If he was just going to disappear or whatnot, but no, the governor doesn't waste any time. He just shoots him tortures him a little bit and then shoots him. What did you think of that?
It was sad. It was sad because I felt like Merle deserved more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it I didn't think the plan was thought through in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of just taking a car, turning up the music, having walkers follow,
Not at
because
all.
that would alert the governor's gang that something was up, and
Yeah.
obviously that didn't end well. And yeah, I was a little disappointed in the writing here. I thought that Merle deserved a little bit better, but again, Merle wasn't the brightest
Right.
bulb in the the light fixture there, so maybe that is the way that Merle needed to go out. But the governor
I
was
guess.
victorious in his little thing, and Merle
Yeah.
bites the bullet.
Yep.
But the bullet was not to the head; it was to the chest, which
Mm-hmm.
means Merle becomes
Yeah. Becomes the walker.
yep.
Yeah. Um, and back at the prison, we have Rick saying he's not going to hand Michonne over, and he does say like the group's going to be different from now on. We're going to vote. I'm not going to be taking control anymore. Um,
Such a huge change. I still don't understand the catalyst, but yeah, big
yeah,
change.
there's just got to be more than the vision of Lori, and I hope from now on that Rick's going to like develop and become a better character because this season just hasn't been my favorite for him.
Yeah,
Not saying he's been like a
he's been through the ringer.
I get it. He's been there a lot, but I feel like he is kind of like they are riding him in circles, I guess. And
That I think
I've
that's a good metaphor there.
there's only
Circles,
so many visions of Lori he can have,
right?
I guess. And I hope the visions of Lori are done.
Agreed.
I'm getting a bit tired of them.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the group aspect in this season has definitely not been. I think the first half of the season, the group itself was a big part, but this
Yes,
second half,
not at all.
not really, which is kind of disappointing. Like everyone's just kind of off on their own, making questionable decisions, which is a bummer. I hope season 4 they can try to like bring back that group aspect of it. I kind of miss it because season 2 that was such a big part of it.
And the very beginning of season 3,
Hmm.
they showed just how much teamwork they had as a
But
group.
yeah,
But that's gone,
yeah, um,
and a lot of characters are just missing. Like we said, where's Carl? Where's Carol?
hmm
There's these characters just not really present.
yeah. And we have Glenn asking Herschel for his blessing to propose to Maggie. And yes, they get engaged. So, I mean, a big milestone for them. I'm curious, what is this wedding going to look like? Is it going to be at the prison, or are they going to go somewhere else, or who knows? But he did take that scene where he went out to the walker. That was him taking the ring, right?
Yes,
One of their rings.
yeah,
Yeah,
off of a walker.
yeah.
Yep.
I figured. So yeah, what do you think of the engagement
It's
between
good.
Glenn and Maggie?
It shows some humanity in the midst of
Hmm.
a monstrous world. I mean, it grounds the group,
Yeah.
makes them real,
Hmm.
and I like that. And I
Yeah.
imagine the wedding will kind of be an off set to the violence of the war, whatever that ends up looking like in the
Yeah.
finale.
For sure. And we have Michonne. She arrives back at the prison, so she made it. And I think Rick's kind of seeing how strong she is.
And I will comment, I really like Michonne's dialogue with Merle.
Mm.
Even though she was a prisoner, she could have escaped at any time, but she tolerated Merle with the hopes that Merle would turn around,
Yeah.
change. Because
Hmm.
again, I really think she could have broke those bonds, and she could have kicked Merle. I mean, there's so many opportunities to escape, and she chose not to. Like it was
Yeah.
her mission to try to save Merle.
Hmm.
I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Gain some respect for her,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. She's been such a great character this season.
Yep,
This is the most she's talked, I think.
I would agree.
Um, And yeah, so the ending, we have Daryl, and he finds Merle as a walker, and then he puts him down, beats him up, and that was a great acting from Daryl's actor, I thought.
Agreed.
My only downside is that I wanted more of Daryl and Merle, like more of their dynamic. We hardly got enough of them as brothers, and that's part of like why the second half of the season's just been so like mad to me is like they've skipped over a lot of stuff. Like I wanted more of Daryl and Merle's scenes together. I wanted, I don't know, more Carl, more I don't know. I think there's just a lot of things that they could have done better in the
Agreed.
second half. But
Agreed.
that ending scene was really well done, with Daryl crying over Merle's body. Um, and I would say Merle didn't get like a full redemption, but I would say he was on like a path to it, and I think he was starting to take steps towards being a better person,
Agreed.
which I did appreciate. I just wish they maybe would have given him a bit better of a death. I guess like they
Hmm.
could have maybe written a bit better. Um, but what were some spiritual stuff from the episode?
And we talked about most of them. Redemption, Merle's redemption,
Hmm.
sacrifice, willing to do something to benefit the group.
Yeah.
Um, I get identity. Merle finding what his role is, even though it wasn't true. Merle felt like his job was to do what no one else would do.
Hmm.
But in reality, Merle was part of the family and could be finding his calling, finding the connection and community they needed if he would just surrender this outward facade of being this tough guy.
Hmm.
But the grief and despair is woven into this episode. The title of this episode is interesting. It's This Sorrowful Life. And so, what is it referring to? Sorrow. Daryl is grieving like crazy at the end of this episode, and again, the actor, like you said, fantastic job. Uh, but it's interesting. What is the title referring to? Um, whose sorrowful life? It's not saying there's sorrow. It's saying this sorrowful life, like this life has been sorrowful. And so, is it referring to Merle? Like he's had a hard life?
I think
A life of
I
trauma,
think
a
so.
life of, and so you take a look at what his character arc. You take a look at the trauma of his dad abusing him and his brother, and all of that. Do you begin to say, with empathy, oh, man, he's had a tough go of it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe this sorrowful life is what we're all experiencing. We're all experiencing a life that is sorrowful. Those characters, of course, but I would say us as well as human beings. We are live in a broken world, and that broken world breaks us, and we're living in this sorrowful life,
Yeah.
and that could be what it is as well.
Yeah.
I really like this episode. I would give it a 9 or 9.5.
Hmm. I would say maybe a little lower. I'm going to give it 8.5. I thought there was good moments, but I thought some of the writing with Merle could have been better
Yep.
with his ending. But yeah, so that's these episodes. We're going to be back next week to talk about the finale, and we'll also try to find some deleted scenes to discuss. And we still have to decide how we're going to review like the graphic novels, because books 2 and 3 have a lot of like intertwining things with season 3. So we'll figure that out. But yeah, we'll be back next week. I'm looking forward to the finale. Are you?
Yeah, yeah. I can't
Seeing
wait.
what goes down. I'm hoping it's going to kind of redeem some of what this season,
I hope
some
so.
of the
I would
season.
imagine it will.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.